I'm Hugh Brownstone, and welcome to part 1 of my masterclass on street photography with B&H. Today we're going to talk about gear. What is the objective? What are the parameters for street photography gear? Well, street photography was made possible by the miniature camera in the first part of the 20th century, and a miniature camera then was the Leica. But we have to have context for this. Miniature compared to what? It turns out that back then, we were dealing with 4x5 press cameras, 5x7 view cameras. So if you were to ask a Cartier-Bresson today, or imagine what a Cartier-Bresson might shoot with, my personal view is that the lightest, smallest, most inconspicuous, and fastest camera available is something like this, an iPhone or an Android. I'll be agnostic for purposes of this discussion. But Elliot Erwitt, to whom I pose this question, says absolutely not. Cartier-Bresson would use a Leica. I like Leica. I love Leica. And so in 2022, one of my personal favorite cameras and one of my 2 go-to cameras for street photography is in fact a Leica M11. I'll explain why in a moment. But I don't have just one camera. I actually have as my primary street camera, not a Leica M, but this, a Leica SL2. Why do I have an SL2 in addition to an M11? Because technology has made a big difference. First, we have autofocus. Second, we have in-body image stabilization, which can be critical when you have to slow down the shutter speed. Third, weather resistance. It's not just climate change. Some of the best shots you'll get in the rain. But there are other cameras much less expensive than these, more dedicated than an iPhone or an Android phone, that I think make wonderful street photography kit. For example, this guy, the Fuji X100V. It's an APS-C censored camera, but who cares? Well, we'll come back to that. What I love about this is that it is light, it is small, it is inconspicuous. This latest update to this 23mm lens, equivalent of a 35, a classic street perspective, is really, really sharp. And what I love about this most especially is this, an articulating screen. Someone like Vivian Maier back in the day would use a Rolleiflex, Fan Ho would use a Rolleiflex, and there is something quite wonderful about being able to look not at your subject and get the shot. And then there's this. Sony did something very interesting when they came out with the A7C, a rangefinder style camera, very compact, the guts of an A7 III, excellent autofocus, very lightweight, interchangeable lenses. And one of my favorite lenses for this camera on the street is the 40mm f2.5, a really nice in-between a 35 and a 50. I think this is a great lens. Tasty, crispy, great for street. Claudia, however, shoots with this camera, a Nikon Z7 II, on the street with just one lens. She never takes it off. It is a 24 to 70 2.8, which is practically blasphemy when it comes to street photography. But this lens is so good, so sharp, that she's got me reevaluating what I think makes for a great street photography setup, especially when it's mated to something like the Z7 II. Why do I like the Z7 II? Why do I like the M11? Why do I like the SL2? On top of the build quality, on top of the color, on top of the dynamic range, it's resolution. Because in 2022, if you can, ride Moore's Law. Invest less in glass and more in resolution because it's less expensive and there's less that gets in the way between reality and the sensor plane. It's just pixels. But that means you have to have fantastic glass. This is the way I look at it. You have to have fantastic glass for street. So what do I have for the SL2? I'm still a primes kind of guy because in the end, primes still outperform zooms. And my go-to lens for my SL2 is Leica's Apo Summicron SL35, the finest lens I have ever used. But it turns out with this L-mount alliance that Sigma is doing some amazing things. And when I need to go wider than 35, I pick up this guy, their 24mm f3.5, which is also just tack sharp, a wonderful, wonderful lens. And when I need a little more reach, I go with this guy, their 90mm 2.8. Incredible. When I want to slow down, when the process of taking my time matters. Really, when I'm doing urban landscape more than I'm doing people, then I love my M11. 60 megapixels with incredible dynamic range, incredible color, incredible high ISO performance. What are the lenses that I use for it? Primes, of course. 35mm f2 is the Apo Lanthar by Voigtlander. Fantastic lens, not inexpensive unless you compare it to Leica's 35mm Apo, which is $8,000 or $9,000. But I still love my Leica glass. So the classic 50mm, the Summicron M 50mm f2. And this lens, and late 1970s design, this is the 5th generation of it, is still capable of beautiful, beautiful rendering. And it just looks great on the M11 sensor. When I need to go wider, my go-to is also a Leica lens, the 24mm f3.8 Elmar. This actually is my favorite lens on this camera. And then finally, when I want to go a bit long, mirroring the focal length and the aperture, the field of view of what I do with my SL2 kit, the little Voigtlander Apo Scopar. Voigtlander has really done a heck of a job with these lenses. So that's what I like for that. So here's an interesting question. What happens when you want to go to 24 or you want to go to 90 on an M body? Well, in the olden days, you needed an auxiliary finder. And really, as far as I'm concerned, once I'm outside 35 to 50 millimeters, I like an EVF. And so I have one, this guy, the VisoFlex 2. It's a wonderful electronic viewfinder, slides right in here, and then we've turned this into an EVF camera where I can see precisely what I'm going to get. I use my own eye for metering. Forget about the waveforms and all the rest, the histograms. Just use your eyes. That's the way to do it. And capture for the edit. Some people call that shooting to the right. That's typically what we talk about in video. I'm saying protect your highlights. It's amazing how much you can bring up the shadow in posts. That's another topic for another video. Accessories. Here's the rule on accessories. Don't bring them. They violate the very concept of street photography gear, which is small, light, fast, and inconspicuous. Except if we're doing urban landscape, there are times when you will want support. And when it comes to tripods, I like Peak Design's carbon fiber travel tripod. It's about as light and it's about as compact as you can make it with good stability. Here's the secret. Don't extend tripods like this all the way. Leave the bottom in the leg just before it. It's a little more stable. If you can avoid it, don't extend like this. But I'll go one step further because I love using small rigs, fluid head tripod. I use a quick release plate. It goes in and out super quickly. It's only about $100. Let's forget about landscape photography for a minute and go to portrait photography. Let's talk about street portraits at night. There are times when you want auxiliary lighting, where ambient light is not good enough. But I don't like flash. I like continuous lighting, LED lighting. variable color temperature lighting. And this little guy from Aperture does a wonderful job when you have someone who can do and be a human C-stand for you. So this is something nice to have. Again, if you can avoid these things, you should. Let's talk about accessories after the capture. When it comes to editing street photography, you want to edit your images as soon as you can. So sometimes you wait till you get home, but both Claudia and I use MacBook Pros with M1 chips. So they're really fast, they're really small, they fit easily in our bags, and we think they're fantastic. We use Lightroom, but it doesn't matter. You can use whatever you like. But here's another dirty little secret. Dongles. These are great. Now, unfortunately, we have different cards. The Sony that we occasionally use uses a CFast Express A card. Claudia uses a QXD card. This is for SD cards going directly into our laptops. And this is for SD cards going directly into our phones, because there are times that you don't want to bring your laptop. And with Lightroom having a mobile version of the application, you can just use your phone for that, so that's great. Let's talk bags, because the more you have, the more you have to carry. So at least it can be comfortable, it can be weather resistant, and it can be efficient in packaging. Let's start with Claudia's bag, the smallest here. This is a Cecilia bag, and it's beautifully done in leather. It's perfect for her Z7 II with 24-70 2.8 Nikkor Z. And I am envious because she never carries more than this. So let's take that one down. Let's talk about Tenba's DNA9 messenger bag. I'm a big fan of Tenba, a big fan of this bag. Just picked it up for the M11 and it is perfect for it. Not very expensive, super weather resistant. You can put this thing in 1.5 inches of water and not worry about it. It's got a quick access pocket if you want to get to it from the top. But personally, what I love is these clips. And if you pull down, it's relatively quiet. Inside, it's got room for my Leica M with the 50mm on it, and then 4 lenses and the EVF plus SD cards. It just works really well. By the way, all of these people who say, oh, look, you can put your passport or your phone, or you never put those things in a bag. That's the first thing that's gonna get ripped off your shoulders, and then what are you going to do? So anyway, I think this is a fantastic bag. I really like it, and it is a daily driver for my M11 kit. This older Tenba bag, the Cooper Slim 13, is a close to perfect bag for my SL2 kit. It allows me to carry the SL2 with the Aposummicron. I just drop it in here. And then if you look over here, you see I can just drop those 2 Sigma lenses on top of each other, and it is very lightweight, very compact, and very comfortable. Multiple pockets over here, that's great. Zip pocket underneath here, that's lovely. Zip pocket on top over here, that's great. And a pocket over here, which is actually big enough for a small laptop. So I think that's terrific. On the other hand, you have to be nuts to carry a laptop on your shoulder when you're walking through the streets. Finally, let's talk about this, the Wandered Provoke 31 liter. This is not the kind of bag, guys, that you want to carry around with you while you're shooting street photography. That's not its purpose. Rather, it's the one bag, no roller necessary when you're doing 3, 4, 5 days and you're traveling. It's when you want to avoid baggage claim going onto a flight, and you can do it with this. And what makes that possible is the roll top. This is where you put your clothes, your toiletries kit, and everything other than the gear. It's big enough so that I can just fit my Tenba Cooper 13 Slim and my DNA messenger bag, and then clothes on top of it. So this is the kind of bag that I take for long weekends. The key is, once I'm here, and of course it's got the pocket for the tripod, it fits everything else, but once I get this off my back, it is not coming on my back until we are checking out. I literally have bags that I pull out whole cloth, and then I can be on the street with those. So now I've shown you the kinds of bags that I use and why I use them. But it doesn't matter what I use, it's whatever works for you. Coming up in future episodes, urban landscape photography, portrait photography, environmental on the street, and editing your images to really bring out the textures of the landscape and the people in front of your lens.